Crafting in Path of Exile is very complex. It's one of the things that makes the game so great, and it's why you can have insane items, while not necessarily diluting the pool of what the average item is. As a result of its complexity, a lot of people don't know how to craft. They don't know the tips and tricks to do something efficiently, so they often have bad experiences because they try to craft, they waste a lot of money using an inefficient method, such as chaos spamming, and then assume all crafting is like that. Oftentimes, if you're using a more efficient method, and if you pay attention to the tags on items, you can craft something at 1/5, 1/10, or even 1/20th of the cost it would take to chaos spam. In this series, I take things suggested by you, and I make them. I'm using Craft of Exile so I don't have to farm all of the requisite harvest crafts and all that in-game, but can still demonstrate what happens to the item in a live manner. However, all of these things will work in Path of Exile, and I've used most of, if not all of these methods, dozens of times on my own items. If there's something that you would like to see crafted, please put it down in the comments below, and please put as much detail as possible. Oftentimes people say, craft a best-in-slot weapon. But what is a best-in-slot weapon? Best-in-slot for what build? What mods does it have? And if you don't include these details, I'm probably not going to add it to an upcoming series. But if I get a lot of requests for the same item, or someone makes a really in-depth post asking about details, there's a good chance I will either reply to you and explain, or put it in an upcoming poll, and that'll make it into a video. For this video, the poll showed that a lot of people wanted to know how to craft Curse on Hit Rings. They wanted to know how to craft the Onslaught, Tailwind, Elusive move speed boots, which are very popular, a topic that I've covered probably 3 or 4 times in the past on this channel, and they wanted to see how to craft more ES gear, so I'm also showing how I made the very expensive ES gloves for my Forbidden Right character. This video was brought to you in part due to the generous support of my YouTube channel members and patrons. More about how you can support at the end of the video, but if you want to help for free, you can do so by feeding the algorithm gods and leaving a like on the video, or turning on bell notifications so that you see whenever I upload. So, to start off with Curse on Hit Rings, which I'm going to break into 2 categories. The first category is easy to roll. These are Hunter, Warlord, and Redeemer bases. The reason these are easier to roll is they don't have very many caster mods competing on the item. So even something like Harvest Reforged Caster is highly efficient at giving you Curse on Hit results. Now, if Harvest isn't on the Atlas, it's kind of a pain to farm up all of the things you need to do Harvest Reforged Caster. It's often going to be roughly a 50-50 shot between hitting a Curse on Hit and hitting cast speed. Those are the only caster tagged suffixes on those aforementioned bases. But if you don't want to farm a bunch of Harvest Reforged Caster, you can also use Aetheric Fossils. Aetheric Fossils also have a very good chance of rolling these as they make caster mods more likely. The more difficult to roll version are the Shaper and Crusader bases, because there's a bunch of extra mods spamming the pool which also have the caster tag, things like spell damage and life gain on spell hit. This can mean you make really awesome rings like Curse on Hit Assassin's Mark, spell damage, life gain on spell hit, using Aetheric Fossils, but it also means that the harvest method is far less efficient because you're only going to guarantee 1 caster mod per try. So if you're using a Shaper base or a Crusader base, I strongly suggest that you stick to using Aetheric Fossils. Now, let's say you've done this and you have really good suffixes, but you don't have good prefixes, and you want life on it. The easiest thing to do at that point is suffixes cannot be changed for 2 exalts, and use a Veiled Chaos Orb. One of the things you can unveil is about 60 to max life, and this should be relatively common. I don't know the exact odds off the top of my head, but just based on my experience using this on items, it seems to be about 1 in 3 on rings. So even if your ring doesn't have life, you can get better than crafted life fairly easily, or of course you could just craft life on and call it good. Next up we have the boots. These boots are incredibly popular and moderately expensive to make, but not as expensive as the absurd amount of value that you'll get out of them. To start with, I'm not going to show the Awakener orbing part because it's really a pain to simulate Awakener orbs in Craft of Exile, as you have to use the advanced copy-paste feature, which means I'd have to have the items in my inventory, and to demonstrate it in-game would probably cost 30 or 40x right now because it's the end of a league and prices are all wonky. So what you need to do is start with a Hunter base that you have elevated Tailwind on. This is obtained by using a Maven's Orb on a Hunter base with Tailwind and 1 other Hunter modifier. You have a 50-50 chance each time, so it costs on average about 10x to do this. Then you add a Redeemer base The Redeemer base is usually a little cheaper, so it should probably be something like the two-tone boots with the enchantment that you want. And again, you elevate it using a Maven's Orb. It is a 50-50 shot, and you might have to try a couple times until you get what you want. Now that you have elevated Tailwind and elevated Onslaught effect, you can combine the two with an Awakener's Orb. Remember to always click the thing you're destroying first and the thing you're using as your final item second. So then you end up with something like this, where you have two really good suffixes and a bunch of junk prefixes. Next up, we want to add the Elusive here. We do this by doing suffix cannot be changed for 2 exalts and harvest reforged critical. The only critical prefix is Elusive on crit, so you'll force that every time. If you get unlucky, you might end up with full prefixes and they're all junk, like in this example. So just do reforge keeping suffixes to gamble away those bad prefixes. Suffixes cannot be changed, reforged critical again, and then we get something like this, which is a much cleaner base. From here you want to again put on suffixes cannot be changed and use Ashling. Ashling will remove one of your 2 random prefixes, and it is a 50-50. On the other hand, she could do what she did here, where she removes the Metacraft, and what you'll end up with is a very high chance of unveiling a move speed mod. It could be move speed if you haven't been hit recently, or move speed cannot be chilled. Once you've done this, you can finish the item by simply crafting life. And finally, here's some more details on how I made the gloves for my Forbidden Rite character. These gloves have at least 200 ES as the prefixes. I ended up getting Intelligence, which was pretty lucky, and Crit Strike Chance, Chaos Damage if you've dealt a crit recently as a suffix. I was using a Shaper Fingerless Silk base because there's a lot of really nice extra bonuses that you could roll. I hit Int, which isn't one of those bonuses, but that's fine. I didn't need something like Cast Speed, though it would have been nice. To start with, you just Dense Fossil spam. If the item is 30 quality, you should be able to get over 200 ES fairly easily. Once you've hit the 200 ES, it is metacrafting time. A lot of the methods that I've talked about so far involve metacrafting, because metacrafting is incredibly powerful. And so yet again, we are metacrafting. What we do is we do prefixes cannot be changed to preserve the ES mods and add a Veiled Chaos. It's roughly 1 in 3 to get the crit chance chaos damage if you've dealt a crit strike recently. If you don't get it on the unveil, that's fine, you can usually try again, and if you can't, you can always do reforge keeping prefixes from harvest until you have an empty suffix to add that metacraft. Once you've done all that, hopefully you roll something a little extra. In the case of my actual gloves, I rolled Int. In the case of this example, I rolled Cast Speed Hybrid. And then you're done. You've made a 20+ X pair of gloves, at least based on the market last I checked. And it probably only cost you 5 or 6X. I hope you found these crafting methods useful, and if there's something else that you'd like to know how to craft, please do tell me down in the comments below. And when you do, please also make sure to put in as many details as possible. If something's very vague, I'm not going to be able to answer the question, as how you craft something is specific to what the item has. A good example of this is someone recently asked how to do cold conversion, and I assumed it was gloves. So I mentioned a method that wouldn't actually work because they wanted to do cold conversion on a weapon. Just crafting cold conversion is kind of generic, but saying I need cold conversion as a suffix on a weapon with these prefixes is much more helpful, and I can give very specific answers to things like that. Also, if you have any really good crafting tips, be sure to put them down in the comments below, as I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear them. Thank you for watching, and again, a special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to support me, you can do so by clicking the links down in the description below, or on screen right now. You can also support by making purchases through my Nexus page. Or if you just want to chill and hang out, be sure to join the Discord. Again, links for everything are down in the description below. Thank you, and have a great day.